You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, and today I'm joined by somebody who I think is very important in the industry, and that is health writer Nerissa Bentley from Melbourne Health Writer. Welcome, Nerissa.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me today.
And so would I be right in describing you as a copywriter specifically for the health industry, and who also takes into consideration all the compliance that we need to adhere to within AHPRA and other peak bodies?
Yes, so I do focus on health and medical writing. So I work with medical organisations, but I also do a lot of work with health practitioners. And part of my work with the practitioners is to make sure that they are complying with the AHPRA advertising guidelines. And most allied health practitioners in Australia do need to follow those, and not just allied health, but, you know, medical practitioners, dentists, Chinese medicine. There are a few health practitioners who aren't regulated by AHPRA, but most of them are. So if you are regulated by them, you do have to follow those guidelines. And so I help practitioners, you know, create that compliant copy that highlights their expertise as well, and helps them promote their services to consumers.
Wonderful. And certainly dental absolutely falls into that criteria that they must be compliant, otherwise they will get into trouble. And there's a good reason why they kind of get into trouble in quotation marks, isn't it? Because it is around providing the community, to people, to our patients and potential patients, with accurate professional information. And it's not going to be the patient that determines the difference between what's appropriate information and what isn't. It really is up to us to make sure that we are always complying within a certain series of guidelines to protect the patients and to allow them to make properly informed choices.
Exactly. And that's why the AHPRA guidelines exist. So patients and consumers can make informed decisions about their health. And part of making informed decisions is having all of the information. So it's not just about the benefits of a treatment, for example. They need to know what are the potential side effects, what are the risks, what are the costs involved, what are the expectations of treatment, like the realistic expectations of treatment, and what's involved, like how many treatments perhaps. So there's a whole lot of information that consumers need to know in order to make that informed choice. And that's what it boils down to, having that informed choice so they can make the right decision for themselves. And because they don't have health information at their fingertips, you know, they're not experts in dentistry or orthodontics or things like that. They rely on the experts in that industry to give them that right information for them.
It's such a fine balance. You need to have all your copywriting skills, you need to have marketing and promotion skills, and you need to have that strong awareness around that informed choice in the compliance area. Tell me a little bit about your history. How did you get to this point in your career?
Yeah, so look, I kind of, like a lot of copywriters, never set out to become a copywriter. So my background is, I got an arts degree, majored in journalism and communication studies, and I've worked with health organisations in marketing over my years. And then I took some time off work to have my children, and then I landed a job as a part-time writer for a corporate wellness company, and I did that for a couple of years from home, which was great because I had my little kids, and then I was made redundant in that role, and they offered me a full-time one, and I said, look, it's not going to suit, I've got 2 young kids. So I decided to step out on my own. And in the early years I was focusing on, like, I was a generalist copywriter, but I always lent more towards the health and medical, and it was what I was really good at and what I really enjoyed. So 5 years ago, I've been in business 10 years now, and 5 years ago I decided to niche and just focus on health and medical writing because that's what I love doing the most. And so over that time I've learnt, I wasn't always an expert in the AHPRA guidelines. It was, really when clients would say, we need to comply with these guidelines, and I'd go in and I said, oh, just Google those, whatever they are. And then I realised how complex it was, because they're not easy to find, those guidelines, and then they're hard to understand. And then, the fines that are involved if you breach the guidelines, and we can talk about that a bit further down the track. But, it was really no wonder health practitioners struggled to get their head around it, because they're running a busy practice. They're trying to promote their practice, see patients, do all of those business things, and then they had to get their head around that as well. And so I really saw an opportunity there to sort of help the health practitioners and, dentists, orthodontics, or whoever is regulated by AHPRA, really help them sort of take away that headache of navigating those guidelines. And to help them, produce whatever content they were going to produce was going to be credible, was going to be evidence-based, was going to comply with the guidelines, but ultimately is going to help the consumer make the right choice for them. And I think when health practitioners and dentists can really focus on doing the right thing by the consumer and presenting the correct, accurate information, it highlights them as the expert in their industry. That people will see them as a trusted authority. They'll go, okay, well, I'll go to that dentist or that dental specialist, because I've seen all of this stuff on their website that they're not making false promises, and they've got references to studies when they're talking about their treatments. So it really helps, build that trust with patients. And so that's how I kind of got into that, because I'm very passionate about making sure that people have correct, accurate health information, because there's so much rubbish out there.
Yeah, and I think that we can look at the AHPRA guidelines when we're just trying to make our business successful and go, crikey, why do I have to comply with all of this? This seems a bit of overreach. But we do need to make sure that we are complying, because it is the patient that's being affected at the end of the day. And one of your big challenges is, with all of your work, is to make sure that we are helping patients to see the possibilities without setting an expectation of a particular result, because they're a unique individual. They're going to have a unique result given the dental services or any other medical services that are delivered onto them. And we were mentioning just prior to hitting the record button that, dentistry, we'll talk about dentistry because they're the people that will be listening to this podcast. Dentists are health practitioners and providers. At the point in time, number of years ago, where marketing was allowed or started to become more acceptable, they then brought in that promotional marketing arm. And there does need to be that overlap between those two worlds, because we need to make sure that we are keeping up with competition and delivering a great service and making sure we're promoting that service out and about so people do come on board and we can build viable businesses. But that overlap is where that blurs the line, doesn't it? And this is where we need to be very careful. So how do you find yourself navigating with that? Because I've found that there is also possibly an element of confusion, and I indeed might be confused, so you can help me in this space as well. Whereas it's one thing to be promoting the actual dental treatments themselves, but it's quite a different thing to be promoting, this is what it's like to be a patient here. The parking is really easy. The customer service is fantastic. The staff are lovely and friendly. Yeah.
So there's two things to that. So one is, and this seems to be the most frustrating thing for dentists and health practitioners across the board, is the use of testimonials, patient testimonials. So, you might have a patient who comes in to the dentist and has a really fantastic experience. They might be somebody who's scared of the dentist, and they come in and they were so relaxed and it didn't hurt, and they've got a great result and all of the rest of it. And they are just so excited. They just want to share that and tell other people, this dentist is fabulous and you should go, and I went for this and that. And unfortunately, if any testimonial mentions any aspect of clinical care, you cannot use that. So that means if they mention why they came, what treatment they had, and the outcomes of that treatment, you cannot use that. It's part of your marketing, because patients are biased. I was going to say they're not unbiased, but patients are biased, and they don't in a testimonial, they don't give every bit of information. They don't talk about the cost. They don't talk about, that they may have not been able to eat properly on that side of their mouth for, 24 hours or whatever it might have been. So they don't give all the information. So therefore, that testimonial can be seen as misleading. On the flip side of that, you are allowed to say things like, there's easy parking, it's close to public transport, the staff are friendly, I felt welcomed, the facilities were clean. So anything that doesn't mention the clinical aspect of care. So it's a real, and it's there's you can just do a little checklist. AHPRA actually have that on their website, and I have it on mine as well. That, does it mention this? Tick. And if you get a tick in any box, you can't use that testimonial. And you shouldn't also edit the testimonial either, because that can be.
I was going to ask that. Can we just take out the incriminating bits?
Now, AHPRA recommend that you don't, because there's the potential to mislead. They don't specifically say you're not allowed, but they strongly recommend that you don't, because of the potential that it becomes a misleading testimonial. So it's better. So what I recommend, if dentists are wanting to get testimonials for their website, and they can also be useful. A lot of people think, oh, well, if they're not talking about how well I treat people, it's a waste of time. It's actually not. When you see people saying, I felt welcomed here, I felt at ease, they listened to me, all of that non-clinical stuff, it's easy to get to. That helps people who are looking for a dentist actually make an appointment and book, and they go, oh, well, that sounds like it's a pretty nice place. It's clean, all of those things that help them make a decision. People don't just make decisions based on the clinical aspect of their care. They make it on all kinds of things. So if dentists are wanting to get testimonials, then, they then should ask the patient, can you provide us a testimonial? And these are the kind of things that you can talk about and we'd like you to mention.
Yeah, and I think we should rejoice in that, because I agree with you. I don't believe a patient is converted to a dentist from one dentist to another because they've read a testimonial that said, my filling was constructed beautifully.
No, not at all.
It usually is because, that practice offer payment plans, or that practice, as you say, close to public transport, or the staff are so delightful, I feel so welcome every time I walk in. They're the reasons why people go to a new dental practice, because they don't have the wisdom, education, understanding of the actual clinical treatments to have that be the compelling factor. They just assume that you're good at the services.
Exactly, because if you weren't good, you wouldn't be registered, would you? There is that assumption that, you do have to have a certain level of clinical expertise to be practicing as a dentist. So that's a given. So you don't need to, I think dentists and other practitioners need to start thinking a bit more about, why do patients come and see you? It's not because you create a great filling. It's not because, they do really comfortable x-rays. They come because you can get an appointment, that they take care of you. I hate going to the dentist. I really don't like it. I'm quite had bad experience as a child. So when I went to my dentist, and I've been seeing him now for 20 years, and I went in and I said, I don't like dentists. I get very, very anxious. And he looks after me. He just always says, now just, if you get nervous, just put your hand up. So I feel comfortable with him. And that's why I keep going back. It's not because he's a great clinician. It's because I feel well taken care of and I feel considered. It's easy to get to, they're friendly. I can always get an appointment if I need to. So they're all the factors why people make appointments. And to overlook those is kind of a bit short-sighted in terms of marketing and thinking, well, those testimonials are a waste of time, because they're actually not.
Yeah. So recently, I've been asking for testimonials, me and my buddy Amina, for our dental practice management program, and we've had a series of 4 questions that we ask the person to answer as part of their testimonial. That could be one way to make sure that you can use the entirety of the testimonial without editing it, but no clinical aspects have actually been mentioned. Questions such as, do you like the way we run on time, or do you like the team members? Do you like the ease of access? Things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you can publicize those testimonials, because, they're not clinical aspects of care, and even though they're biased opinions, you're not talking about the expertise of the clinician. And that's the problem with the testimonials, is that the people read them. Testimonials are a powerful form of advertising, and yourself, when you see something on television, you can be sitting on the couch and you see an ad for, I don't know, pizza or something, and you weren't even thinking about pizza until you see it. Then you go, oh, actually, that sounds really good. We're swayed by advertising all the time, and we don't even realise. So those testimonials are quite persuasive in getting people to make bookings. And when you see things like, I'm pain-free now and things like that, it's like, that can be construed as you're never going to be in pain ever again, which is not true, So those terms, you have to be very careful about what words you use and what the implication of those words can be in the consumer's mind. And if there's any room for, misinterpretation, then it's best to just reword it or leave that out,
Yeah, that's it. So the kind of copywriting that you're doing is for everything, I imagine: website, newsletters, social media posting, social media pages. If you are putting out any kind of written content where your potential clients or actual clients will be reading it, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and one of the big things on the websites, it's not just about the practice or what they do, but it's about patient information. So highlighting what are common things that people come to dentists for. So, can you do you do fillings, and do you do crowns, and do you do implants, and why would I need an implant over a crown, and why would I need a bridge over an implant, and all of those sorts of things. So getting that whole sort of helping consumers make choices by giving them information about certain procedures and saying, you would need a crown for X, Y, and Z, and you might need an implant when we can't do a crown, or if all of those kinds of things. So it's explaining what these terms are, because a lot of people don't understand what, a lot of people do know what a crown is, but they may not know what a bridge means and how that works. And even things like, why do I need to have X-rays? Why? Tell me what, So you're talking about this is what the X-ray does. This is how it feels. This is what it, you sit in the chair and, explaining things to people so they come in and they're not overwhelmed and they know what to expect. So more and more dentists are sort of wanting to add that in, as well as information that patients can download on, what to do after their procedure. So they've had a tooth removed. What is the aftercare? What should you do? When should you call us? What's normal bleeding? What's not normal bleeding? When could you eat? What kind of painkillers should you be taking? How often? All of those kinds of things are starting to become a bit more, dentists are starting to really think beyond the four walls of the practice and just seeing the patient in the chair. They're starting to think about how can they make the patient journey more comprehensive from before they come in to after they leave. And even in terms of, things like when do you need a checkup? When should you bring your children in? How old should your children be for their first dental checkup? All of those basic questions that it's easy to assume your patients know that or consumers know that, but they actually don't. It's very confusing. Some people say you should see a dentist every 6 months. Some say every 12 months. So what is it, So dentists are starting to think about those things and think about how can they best serve the community and their current patients. Because if they give good service to their patients, they retain those patients. As I said, I've seen my dentist for 20 years because they look after me.
This is the side of treatments that we can discuss, not the treatments that you'll necessarily assure you of certain results here in this practice, but generally all people need to be aware of what a filling is, what a crown is. But it's even deeper than that. And this is where copywriters are so brilliant, because I'm not good at this myself. And that is, for me as a consultant, for example, I can describe, just like a dentist can describe what a crown is, I can describe what a coaching program does or what an online course does for dental practice managers. I can describe the features of that. And I can even describe the benefits of that. But the link into helping a community improve their oral health, for me to help dental practices be more successful, there is one key factor, and that is communicating the value to your life. The value to your life if you were to get a crown rather than to have the tooth break down, or to get an implant rather than just to leave a space there. For example, to lose a tooth, I was thinking about this just this morning bizarrely, but to lose a tooth, the ramifications of losing a tooth, they go on and on and on, and you're not going to sit there and describe all of those ramifications to a patient, because they would feel like you were scaring them into the decision to replace that tooth. But there are so many ramifications, it's crazy. And this is the thing. You are very good. People who are professional writers are very good at articulating a thought process that we don't normally do. We feel like in dental practices, we're educators. This is an implant. However, the thing that the patient truly understands and needs to tap into is, and this is the value it represents in your health,
Correct.
in your life.
Exactly. And it's not so much then a cost, it's an investment into your health. So, you know, I had a crown that I had done 24 years ago, and when at not my last checkup, the one last year, they did an x-ray and they saw that there was a bit of decay under it, and they sent me to a specialist who was fantastic, because I also said, I don't like being here. And once again, they looked after me. And cut a long story short, they said, look, it's too risky. We can't, you know, really do a crown. It's touch and go whether we can. So we recommend you remove the tooth and we'll put in an implant. And I said, and because I've got a health background, so I know the importance of keeping teeth, but I asked, I said, so what would happen if I didn't? Because it's not a cheap thing getting an implant. And he said, well, your teeth will start to move around, and then you're probably going to eventually you'll have more dental problems and other teeth will become loose. And I went, oh, yeah, no, I don't want any more of that. And also, I want to be able to eat apples and chew nuts. You know, I don't want to have all of these gaps in my teeth. And so because I could, and you know, it was not really a question for me about how much it's going to cost, but it became then, okay, so if I want, you know, to live well and eat the things that I want to eat and be healthy into my older age, I need to keep this tooth. And so it wasn't a cost, it was an investment into my future health and my future quality of life as well. You know, it's not much fun not being able to eat certain foods. And so I think if dentists are really good at doing that, then they get more of that sort of the patient saying, yes, I'll have that treatment. But doing it through a website and through the information on their site takes that awkwardness away from them in that patient to dentist conversation. So sometimes they feel like, as you said, that they're really trying to push this procedure onto them by saying, you know, these are all the ramifications, when they could just say, hey, look, there's some information on our website. Go have a read, go and have a think about it, and then let me know what you think. And let that content do the work, rather than them feeling all stressed and nervous and feeling like they're doing the hard sell, because dentists are not there to sell. They're there to treat patients and, you know, oral health. So websites and content can do a lot of that hard work for them if they're written well. And if they're balanced as well. And also, you know, when we're talking about certain procedures, that's where AHPRA wants to see that, you know, like, for example, why would you do an implant over trying to fix a broken tooth with a crown? Well, the evidence says, so AHPRA says, well, what's that evidence? What study are you referring to? So dentists then can sort of show their expertise that, you know, we are at the cutting edge. We know what the latest research says about this, this, and this, because this is the study that we've referred to in our information. You don't have to go and read it, but we just, you know, reference that study by saying evidence shows that people who have all their teeth have better long-term health outcomes, you know, and that is science telling the consumer about what the facts are without the dentist doing the hard sell. But it's also the dentist showing the consumers that they are experts in what they do, because they follow that science, and what they do is evidence-based.
And I love the thought of utilising the dental practice's website. It's more than just another element of the facade of the practice. This is something that you can educate your patients, engage your patients in as well. And it is an additional amount of information or data that allows them to make clear choices, informed choices, smart choices for their own oral health. And we've always got to remember that what are the conversations we are having with patients when we're talking to them about different treatments? Because depending on many, many factors, some dentists can still feel a bit uncomfortable in over talking or really promoting what they see as the ideal treatment because they feel like they're pushing it on the patient or selling to the patient. And it can be done in a very non-salesy way of just providing the information and data to the patient very carefully on the website. So it can be an additional very powerful step in that patient communication process.
Correct. And so it also sets that dentist up as an expert in their field, that people like, if you're comparing two dental websites, who would you choose if you didn't know them? The one that's just got about us, photos of the dentists and the practitioners who work there, a booking form and, where to park, or you've got all of that as well as here's some of the common dental problems that we see. This is how we help those patients. This is the recommended treatment. You've got more information. You kind of think, well, they know what they're doing. What does these other people, even though they do know what they're doing, there's not that perception the same. So that's a really powerful way to, promote their business. It's a marketing tool. But it also helps with the SEO of their website. So the more, and it's not so much you have multiple pages to get more SEO hits, but the more pages you have on your website, the more likely you are to come up in search results. So, for example, if somebody's researching, they might have broken a piece of their front tooth off and they're researching, how do I fix a broken front tooth? If there's an article or patient information about that on a dentist's website, that will come up in the search results. Whereas a dentist who doesn't have that information, they're not going to even be featured unless they're paying ads. And so, you can pay for Google ads, let's be honest, but why pay for that if you don't have to? If you've got really good SEO working with your website and you're answering the common queries that people are typing in through the information that you've got there, then that is a really, really powerful tool to market your practice as well.
Absolutely. So how much work are you doing with, social media pages, like Facebook pages for a particular dental practice and the content that they write in that, whether it be related to these are the different services that dentistry offers patients, or this is the kind of experience that you can have when you come here to the practice? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so look, I don't do a lot of social media work. There's other people who I can refer to who are really, really brilliant at that. But what I do see, dentists, the way that they can promote their business, they obviously can promote things about good oral health, the importance of brushing, how you should brush, things about diet. So, what we eat has a great impact on the state of our teeth and our gums. So, looking at articles about how to reduce sugar in your diet, easy swaps. So a whole lot of stuff. It's not just about, getting your check and you're clean or having an x-ray. There's a whole lot of different things that encompass oral health. And so tapping into some of that. And I think if they want, if you want engagement through social media, you need to create content that people who are scrolling through social media will read. So you don't want great big long text. Infographics are really great, especially on Instagram. You've got the carousels that people can just flick through. And even on LinkedIn now, there's carousels. You can use carousels. I'm not sure if the feature's rolled out to everybody yet, but there's more and more of that carousel sort of focus where you can just, it's very easy to put together a post that says, benefits of brushing and flossing every day. And you just flick through and you can have one sentence or a few words on each carousel, and people take that, okay, well, I might start flossing now, because people, everybody brushes their teeth, but not everybody flosses, let's be true. So just those kinds of easy tips and providing tips. So it's not always about promoting their business. It's about giving value, more value. So what are some tips to increase your oral health? Here are some tips if you're feeling nervous about coming to the dentist. What should you do? all those kinds of things to make it easier.
Actually, that's a great one. I haven't seen any promotions at all, any content in terms of marketing and promotion at all that says, if you're anxious about coming to the dentist, here are some hints. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing I look for. So it's about getting into your patient's head, and dentists aren't so great at that. Some of them are, let's be honest, but a lot of them need somebody else to sort of ask them questions. Say, okay, who do you see? How old are they? What are they coming in for? How is their demeanour? Are they nervous? Are they, some people, it's like little kids, some kids get so excited to go to the dentist. My daughter used to cry, but, there's a whole lot of things that you can ask them and go, okay, so these are kind of the people that you see, and there's an exercise I do with some of my clients is developing their customer avatars and going, okay, so this group of people have these kinds of issues, and this is what they think, and this is how they feel, and these are their fears and their beliefs, and this is their ideal outcome. So how can we create content that speaks to those people? And so they might be the nervous Nellies who don't want to come to the dentist but know that they have to if they want to look after their teeth. And then there might be other people, an older person who's, they want to keep their teeth because they don't want to get dentures. So there's a whole lot of different customers, I guess, or patient models that dentists see, and the dentists know who their groups are. If you ask them and say, so tell me about your cohort patients, who are they? Give me, there's three groups. Who are they and how old are they? And they know, but they don't have the time to write the social media posts, and B, it takes a bit of work to actually move away from the clinician's chair to sit down and go, okay, so now what do they want to know? So that's where they can benefit by working with somebody else who can really help them unpack that information and ask the right questions, and then come back and go, okay, so these, from what you've told me, these are the kind of people that you see. Is that correct? And they'll go, yeah, that's fantastic. And go, right, now we know how to speak to them. We know what content they want because we know who they are.
It's such an important aspect, that whole avatar thing. And I was thinking about how can I describe why that's so important. And one of the things, it's not the greatest example, but one of the ways I've described it in the past, which semi goes there, is if I was what's a common children's movie? One of those Pixar ones with the cartoons and stuff.
Cars, that's my son's favourite movie, or Toy Story, or...
So if I was to come to a point in my life where I needed to take a child along to a movie, and then I realised I had no time to do it, I would say to the child, you should go along to see this movie called Cars. It's so much fun. It's animated, and there's this character that does this and this character that does that. It's just so awesome. Yet if I was encouraging my husband to actually be the one to take a child to see the movie, I wouldn't describe the movie that way to him.
No.
I would describe the movie as a way of having some time with the child, and this movie is fantastic because it has, adult kind of jokes there, so every adult that goes along finds it hilariously funny as well. And so even though you're giving your child a really lovely experience to go to the movies, you're going to have fun too. And so the benefits and features and value that you describe to the child and to the husband about the very same thing, you're using different words and different messaging.
Yeah.
And that's why when you understand who your avatar is, you can far more effectively speak to that particular person in a way that they truly get the messaging you're trying to put across.
Exactly. And then it stops people from that whole, there's that saying of spray and pray marketing, that they just blurt out very generic information and hope that their ideal customer hears it and then converts. And that never works. You have to actually talk to your ideal patient or customer, or sometimes it's more, who do you want to see more of? Sometimes you say to the dentist, okay, you're seeing these kinds of patients. Are there other patients you want to see more of in your practice? Who are they? And how can we talk to them so they will come in the door as well? So knowing who you want to see and keep seeing and working out what makes them tick and, you know, what are their fears, their beliefs, their outcomes, you know, what's their personal situation, you know, do they live locally? Do they have money to spend on dentistry? Do they have children who they need to bring in? All of that stuff really helps when you're putting together a marketing strategy. And then that then informs the content. So you go, okay, so we're talking to a family and they've got 3 children. So these people, we're probably going to talk about family oral health and looking after your children's dentistry, and when do you know if your child needs orthodontics, and all of those bits and pieces. Whereas an older generation, they're not interested in orthodontics for their children because their children have grown. Like, you know, they don't have to pay for that now. So it's a very different kettle of fish that, you know, the dental needs change over a lifetime. So what you say to your patients has to meet their needs in their stage of life as well. And so knowing all of that, and it sounds very overwhelming, but once you really start to ask the right questions, it's quite easy to get to that point. And then that is a real powerful thing to use in creating that content, because you know that what you're going to say is more likely to hit the mark than just spray and pray that we get someone somewhere.
Yeah, that's it. And I think getting that expert outside perspective on this is the way the conversation needs to be, this is what your messaging needs to look like, from somebody who understands how patients out there, how their minds think, what order of information it needs to be in order for them to truly be understanding and maintain engagement throughout as well. It's just such an important element, I feel like, to outsource. And more recently, Amina and I have been outsourcing some of our marketing, for example, and the ideas that are coming back, you're like, oh my God, like, why didn't I do this years and years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And it's it can be, because dentists are so busy running their practices, they actually don't even have time to think about this stuff, you know. And if they do have downtime, they want to be kicking back and having a bit of a relax. They don't want to be doing this stuff on the weekends or looking up APRA guidelines on the weekends. They want to have their downtime and spend time with their family, or, you know, do whatever it is that they want to do in their spare time. They don't want this whole practice to encompass their entire life. And I think, you know, they don't go into practice so they can be busy 7 days a week. They go into practice so they can help patients. And that's what their love is. So, you know, if we can come in and help the dentists help their patients, then dentists and patients win. You know, they're not doing the stuff that they don't really want to be doing, or they're not sitting there struggling, like, you know, spending 5 hours trying to write web copy and then go, oh, I've got like one paragraph and it reads really, really bad.
Yeah, that's right. And time is one of the hugest, biggest factors for dental practices. There's no time to be able to write copy really well. There's no time to get team training happening or to bring a consultant in. There's no time for anything else. We're so, you know, we operate our days right down to the last minute. And so if you do require better copy on your website, in your newsletters, etc., then sourcing this out to someone who is an expert in the field is money very, very well spent. And it's not enormously expensive either. I think sometimes we think, oh, that would be so costly, but it's not. You know, there's reasonable fees all over the place, and we just need to tap into them and start to benefit from all the value that these sort of spaces and these sort of experts help us. They're out there to help us be successful. Now, you were mentioning that there are certainly some drawbacks to stepping outside of APRA guidelines, such as fines and I suppose reprimands as well. What do you know about that space?
Okay, so look, APRA put on their website about, you know, the fines that they can be charged, that practitioners can be charged. Some of the fines are quite substantial. So they're very, very protective about specialist titles and the misuse of titles. So, for example, any practitioner, and including dentists, if they have not got a registered specialty within their practice. So, for example, you know, an orthodontist is a specialist dentist, right? So they can say that they are a specialist. But if they don't have that specialist registration, they cannot call themselves a specialist. And if they have got a specialist registration, they can't call themselves a specialist in another specialty that if they don't have that. So APRA are very big at protecting that specialist registration. And the fines for an individual can be up to $60,000, and fines for a body corporate is $120,000. Now, that said, AHPRA don't come out with a big stick and go, right, we've seen this on your website, here's a fine of $60,000. They actually will give you a chance to fix it. So what happens is that the dentist, if they're breaching anything AHPRA guideline wise, whether it's evidence or a specialist title or something else, they will get notified by AHPRA that they are in breach of some of the guidelines. AHPRA will show them, they will copy the information from their site, and they will put it in a little table, and it'll say, this contravenes this part of the guidelines and you need to fix it. But they don't tell you how to fix it to make it compliant. They just say, this is in breach, that needs to be fixed. This is in breach, that needs to be fixed. So they give you a chance, and it's usually 30 days turnaround. So they say, okay, you need to have this done by 30 days. And then now AHPRA have also introduced a random audit process. So they can go on to check out any registered practitioner's website, dentists, doctors, whoever, and do a random audit. And then if they find stuff that is non-compliant, that's when they'll send them these notifications. But if they have notified somebody that they're in breach, and then they audit them again and they're still in breach, that's when they can get that fine. So they do give you a chance. AHPRA really just want to see that you're trying. Everybody's going to make mistakes because not everybody understands what these guidelines mean, and they don't have that time. So AHPRA want to see them actually trying rather than disregarding. So when they start to fine people, it's usually when they've been notified and they've just blatantly ignored them, or if it's a really serious breach. So, for example, somebody set themselves up as a dentist and they have got no qualifications at all, then they would certainly, fine them. But imprisonment is also on the cards as well, depending upon the severity of the breach. So, look, most practitioners would not be sent to jail, and not unless you've done something really, really bad. But if you do get pinged by AHPRA, they give you a chance. However, that said, it's much better to get your web copy written and have all your content AHPRA compliant in the first place. Because once you've been told that's not compliant, you have only got 30 days. And as we said before, time is of the essence, and you may not have time to sort that all out. And so what happens, and what's happened with one of my clients, is she actually got somebody else to help her make things compliant, and that person didn't know what they were doing, and they were still non-compliant, and then they were pinged again. And then I came in and I found so many things that were non-compliant, and they were they couldn't believe it. There were so many things wrong that the other person said, no, that's fine. So you have to be careful who you get to fix. And that's a very stressful thing, knowing that if you're on AHPRA's radar for not complying, then they're likely to check back in, even though they say it's random. My gut says that they will be checking. Do you know what I mean? Why send that notification out if they're not going to double check that it's been fixed?
And you're absolutely right. When we were talking before about the blending of the two worlds, the professional dentist and the promotion and marketing world, and that they do need to overlap, this is why getting someone like yourself is so important, because I don't think there's any dentist out there that wants to be on the radar of AHPRA. They just want to say, I'm doing everything compliant, don't look at me, just let me go on my business. Correct. And so to get marketing copy, promotional copy done without this element can be a little bit ridden with strife.
Yes, and it's stressful too, because if you know your content hasn't been checked, you'll be sitting there going, is it okay? I don't know. I'm waiting for them. You've got that anxiety hanging over your head. Yeah, keeping your fingers crossed. Oh, it's all too hard, so I just did it myself, and let's just hope it's okay. That's not a nice place to be in. You want to walk into your practice and look at your website and go, yeah, I'm really proud of the way we operate. I'm really proud of the website. I know everything we're doing. We've ticked all the boxes the best that we can. I feel confident in who we are and what we do. So, once you are being pulled up, you've got to stop what you're doing and put time and effort and probably money getting someone to help you sort out the non-compliance when really it would be easier and a better investment to do that straight up and go, okay, we're overhauling our web copy. We want to make sure that everything here ticks the APRA box, so we don't ever have to deal with APRA stuff again unless we're writing new content. And then you just get it done. It's going back to that. What's the investment of saving your tooth long term? So it's that whole it's investing in your business. It's investing in your time and saving your time and money down the track, plus all of that stress. And running a practice is not a stress-free thing to do. So why add more stress on top of that if you don't have to?
Oh, amen. Amen to that, for sure. So if there are dentists out there that say, yes, I want to get my copy redone. So 1, it reads beautifully. 2, it's actually speaking to my market. 3, it's compliant. And 4, it is engaging and helping build value in dentistry to the public, because if the whole industry succeeds and every dental practice within it succeeds even better as well, and they want to tap into your services. Are you working Australia-wide? I imagine you do, with the kind of work you do. And what's the process of working with you?
Yeah, so look, I've got a few APRA services that I offer. So 1, I have a downloadable free checklist, so people can just download it, and it's got like the common little things that people get caught up on when they're writing their own copy, whether it's newsletter copy or web copy. So that's a really great place to start to sort of go through that. So it's called a credible compliant copy checklist. So you can just download that off my site. You just have to give me your email address, and then I'll send you more email about APRA things. I've also got a couple of blog posts on my website that people can look at. So about how to get testimonials, what does APRA mean by acceptable evidence, and then I've got another one coming up about the 10 things that health practitioners get wrong. So the most common 10 things. Then the next level from that is that I have an APRA compliancy check service. So if there is web copy already written, I can audit up to 5 pages of that copy. I can do as many pages, but the set fee is usually for 5 pages. And I just look through that and read through that and highlight anything that may be problematic. And I can also look at testimonials as well. I won't edit them, right, but I'll tell you if you have to pull it off. So I can look at the copy and sometimes I go, okay, that I would change that word. You don't need to, that's a bit problematic or whatever. So they get a report at the end about anything that was problematic and what needs to be fixed and how to fix it. Or I can fix it for them, as an extra fee. And then this next step up is for me to actually write that web copy for you. So, the web copy, it's Google friendly. So we'll be found in Google, and we do, keyword research. So we know what they're targeting, the correct keywords. We're using all of the proper Google techniques and no black hat backlinks that are all dodgy. We don't do any of that. And then, writing that copy to make sure that it does connect with patients, that it is APRA compliant, that it doesn't talk about unnecessary medical jargon or dentistry speak that people don't understand. And obviously there's dental terms that we need to talk about, but part of my service is breaking that down so people understand it. And if we have to use a medical terminology, then I will explain what that means. Whereas a lot of practitioners and clinicians, they just assume everybody knows what they're talking about, So writing that copy is a process that I work with the client together. So we have a briefing call, like a 1-hour briefing call where we talk about the business and what they want to achieve. And we write that copy that sort of targets their ideal keywords. I can also provide advice on how to structure the website so it's easy for patients to come in and navigate and where information should be found and all the rest of it. Obviously, it's APRA compliant as well, so it ticks that box. And it also helps highlight the expertise of the practice, of the practitioner and the practice, as well as encourage patient bookings if that's what they want to do. So obviously some practices are so busy they don't want any more bookings. It's a bit stressful for them. But they might want to be seen as an expert in their industry for something else perhaps, and maybe they want to, become a bit more of a consultant or talk to people about, maybe teach or something. I don't know. But it's whatever they want to do to highlight their expertise, we can do that through the copy as well. So that's very much a collaborative way of working, because, dentists know their practice better than I do. I know words, I know SEO, I know how to create the content, but I don't know about your practice. So you have to be able to be available. And that's the other key thing, is that if a dentist does want web copy, they need to be available to invest some time into that. So time talking with me, time to review the copy, time to, check that things are okay. They don't have to write the copy, but they have to be available to be able to be part of that. Otherwise, we don't get the result that they want in the end. And it's their practice, as I said. So, I need them to tell me what they do and why other people should come.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so what is their best next step if they say, yes, I need all my content reviewed and maybe I want a whole bunch more content to replace it? What's their best next step to get to work with you?
Yeah, so they can just pop along to my website. So that is melbournehealthwriter.com, all one word, lowercase. When you pop on the front page, my little pop-up will come up about you can get my free checklist. And then there's a tab up the top that says APRA compliance. So they can find everything there. So there's a link to the checklist there. There's a link to the compliancy check. There's a link to the web copy service that I have there as well. So, and then through the blog, you can just go into the blog and search for APRA on the blog, and those articles will come up as well. So they just come to the homepage, and go from there. And if there's any other, questions, just feel free to send me an email through my contact page and we can have a chat.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so thrilled that we've had this conversation.
Yeah,
it's such an easy aspect of your practice to outsource.
Absolutely.
And we can't do everything. Time is of the essence. And when we can get a better result just by delegating these things out to experts in their field, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer as well, like you were talking about before. And I do encourage everyone to go along and read your blog articles. I was hoping, do you mind if I throw a couple of those blog articles up in our Facebook group?
Absolutely. Go for it. No worries at all.
I would love to do that. So just to, help promote the fact that this particular expert is out there. And this is one of the things that I've absolutely loved with producing this podcast is I was never aware of the amount of people out there that their whole focus is how to make dental practices more successful. And you are one of them. And I thank you so very much for your time today.
My pleasure. And just one thing, if dentists are looking for an APRA specialist, there are people who say that they are on their website, but all they do is they say they are. There's no other information. There's no blog posts. There's no nothing. So I think that's where my other client got caught, is they used somebody who said they were, but there was no evidence anywhere else that they talk about it anywhere. So if somebody's not talking about it, it's probably because they're not as up with the guidelines as they need to be. So just a little word of warning for any dentists out there, just who happen to find somebody who says it in one sentence. Maybe it's not to say that they don't, but generally if you are an expert, you tend to talk about what it is.
There's usually evidence to back you up.
There's evidence that you know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, we're just talking about how important it is to be very honest with your advertising and promotion, and not to put things out there that sway the market one way or the other, because you may not be the expert in the field, but that's right. Look for the evidence on the website that what you're seeking out, that person absolutely does deliver, and you deliver on this. So wonderful.
Yep. Great. That sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, Nerissa. It's been such a joy to speak with you, and so very interesting. This space needs to be adhered to and done very, very well, because one, you want to be compliant, but two, you really want to promote your business very effectively as well and help build your dental practice up. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, then you should come along and join the club. The club is a whole library of lunch and learns, with new lunch and learns being produced all the time, that help your dental team gain greater success in your systems, in your team behaviours, in your patient management, in your patient engagement, in their treatment plans. They are usually around half an hour in length, and so team members can sit down, be paid for their lunch break, eat lunch while they're being inspired, and delivered all of these insights and strategies that can be implemented so you all achieve greater levels of success. Also, Amina and I, my buddy from Dental Management Expertise, have a company, Dental Business Mastery, together. And our flagship online 1-year course for dental practice managers and dental practice owners to learn how to very successfully manage your dental practice is available. Head over to dentalbusinessmastery.com.au to find out more information, and has information about any other courses that we've got available. Also, make sure you do jump onto my website, julieparkerpracticesuccess.com.au, and you will see a whole load of free information. There are articles, the blog, downloads, templates, a whole load of things that are designed to help you overcome any specific challenge that you've got going on in your practice at the moment. If you have any suggestions of topics or guests that I can have on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for listening.